Have you ever looked at someone and wondered, how do they live so freely? So fearlessly? Like nothing can hold them back? And then asked yourself, why can't I do the same? Here's a truth that might surprise you. Freedom isn't just about having no limits. It's about having the courage to be yourself. Fully. Completely. And do you know who embodies that courage better than anyone? Sagittarius. Yes. The sign of the archer. But today, we're not talking about adventure and travel like every other video. We're diving deeper. Because behind their playful smiles and bold energy, hides something most people don't see. Sagittarius carries a secret blueprint. A mix of astrological wisdom and raw human psychology. A way of thinking, of feeling, of living, that could unlock your own sense of freedom. And in this video, you're about to discover it. We'll explore what makes Sagittarius so magnetic, and why their honesty, their dreams, and even their quiet moments can teach you how to live more authentically. If you've ever felt trapped in routine, unsure how to express your real self, or simply curious why some people shine without trying, stay with me. This video could change how you see yourself. Before we begin, if you find value here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, and share it with someone who might need it. Now, let's dive in. What if I told you, freedom isn't about escaping your life, but about daring to live it as your true self? Sounds simple, right? But in reality, how many of us wake up each day trapped in routines we didn't choose? How often do we suppress what we feel? Just to fit in? That's where Sagittarius teaches us something powerful. For Sagittarius, freedom isn't an option. It's a need. It's the air they breathe. But it's not the kind of freedom you might imagine. It's not about running away. It's about having the bravery to stand in your own truth. Even when it's uncomfortable. Even when people don't understand. Picture someone who walks into a room and seems completely at ease with who they are. Not because they're the loudest or the most successful, but because they carry themselves with a quiet confidence. That's Sagittarius energy. They remind us, life isn't meant to be lived in a box. The more you try to suppress who you are, the more you lose yourself. And Sagittarius? They refuse to lose themselves. Their soul demands authenticity. And maybe, so does yours. But how does that look in everyday life? Think of the times you said yes when you wanted to say no. Or when you followed a safe path, because you were afraid to disappoint others. Sagittarius would tell you that every yes that betrays your heart is a no to your own freedom. And what's the cost of that? Over time, you stop recognizing the person in the mirror. You forget what excites you, what lights you up, and life starts feeling heavy. That's why Sagittarius stands as a symbol. Not just for adventure, but for authenticity. Every decision they make starts with one question: does this feel true to me? And if the answer is no, they walk away. Not because they're selfish, but because they understand, a life lived for others is not a life lived at all. Now, imagine carrying that mindset into your daily life. What would change if you chose truth over comfort? What if you dared to disappoint others to stay loyal to yourself? Scary thought. Right? But Sagittarius shows us, that's where real freedom begins. And when conflict comes, as it always does in life, Sagittarius responds in a way most people find intimidating. They don't back down. They don't avoid the hard conversations. Instead, they stand firm. Not with aggression, but with clarity. When they're challenged, they don't feel the need to please or to soften their truth. They speak it calmly, directly, and people notice. Why? Because in a world full of people pleasers, someone who speaks their mind becomes unforgettable. Think back to a time when you avoided a confrontation. Maybe at work. Maybe with someone you love. Why did you avoid it? Fear of judgment? Fear of hurting feelings? Sagittarius feels that fear too. But they choose honesty over silence. They know silence only prolongs suffering. Speaking your truth ends it. And here's the beautiful part. Sagittarius doesn't argue to win. They speak to be understood. Their goal isn't to dominate, but to express. And that's something we all can learn from. Conflict isn't about defeating someone. It's about revealing yourself. And when you approach life that way, arguments don't break relationships. They strengthen them. Speaking of relationships, let's talk about one of the most challenging parts of human connection. Honesty. You'd think it's simple. But is it really? How many people in your life can you say exactly what you feel to? How often do you hold back? Sagittarius doesn't. Not because they're fearless, but because they know honesty isn't cruelty. It's clarity. And clarity builds trust. When a Sagittarius loves, they do it directly. No mind games. No half-truths. If they're into you, you'll know. If they're not, you'll know that too. It might sound harsh, but think about how many relationships suffer simply because people don't say what they really feel. Sagittarius teaches us that hiding your truth doesn't protect others. It damages connection. Real intimacy requires transparency. So what can you do? Start simple. Express how you feel, even if your voice shakes. Tell someone what you need, even if it feels selfish. And remember, honesty is a gift. Not everyone will appreciate it. But those who do, will trust you more deeply than ever before. And when it comes to chasing dreams, Sagittarius shows us a mindset that's both radical and simple. They believe that nothing is impossible. Now, you might think that's naive. But here's the thing. This belief isn't about blind optimism. It's about refusing to let fear dictate your life. Picture a child learning to walk. Do they stop after falling once? Twice? 10 times? No. They keep going. Sagittarius carries that childlike faith into adulthood. They see setbacks not as failures, but as lessons. Every obstacle becomes a stepping stone. Every no becomes motivation to find a better path. And what does that teach us? That success isn't about never falling. It's about refusing to stop rising. So, ask yourself, what dream have you buried under fear? What goal did you abandon because someone told you it was unrealistic? Sagittarius would tell you, go after it anyway. Not recklessly, but relentlessly. Trust your passion. Trust your ability to figure things out along the way. Because the only thing standing between you and your dream is the story you tell yourself about why you can't have it. Sagittarius doesn't see limits. They see possibilities. And maybe it's time you did too. By now, you might be wondering, could I live like that? Could I be that honest? That free? That fearless? And the answer is yes. Not because you'll suddenly become a Sagittarius, but because what they embody is already within you. Buried under fear. Under doubt. Under years of saying yes when you meant no. Sagittarius simply reminds you, it's time to remember who you really are. And live like it. Now, let's pause for a moment and think about loyalty. Not the kind of loyalty people often talk about. Not about being there just when things are easy. I'm talking about the loyalty that comes from standing up for what's right, even when it's uncomfortable. Even when it costs you something. That's the kind of loyalty Sagittarius lives by. You see, for them, loyalty isn't about blind support. It's about integrity. It's about standing beside people who share your values, and walking away from those who don't. Imagine having that clarity. That strength. Think about how many times you stayed silent when someone crossed your boundaries. How often you stayed loyal, not to people, but to your fear of being alone. Sagittarius challenges that. They remind us that sometimes loyalty to others must begin with loyalty to ourselves. Picture someone who never lets a wrong go unspoken. Someone who will protect the people they love without hesitation. That's Sagittarius. But here's the deeper lesson. They know who they are. And because of that, they know who's worth standing beside. Do you? Now, let's talk about passion. Real passion. Not just excitement or temporary motivation. Passion that fuels your life from the inside out. Sagittarius burns with this energy. But here's what most people miss. Their passion doesn't come from always being happy or chasing thrills. It comes from their refusal to live a life that doesn't light them up. They follow their inner fire, not because it's easy, but because anything less would feel like dying inside. Think about that. How many things in your life do you keep doing even though they drain you? A job. A relationship. A habit that no longer serves you. And yet, you stay. Because it feels safe. Because changing feels hard. Sagittarius would say, that safety is a cage. And your passion? That's the key. But passion without freedom dies quickly. That's why Sagittarius protects their freedom with everything they have. Not just freedom to travel or explore. Freedom to think differently. To dream bigger. To choose the life that feels right to them, even when everyone else disagrees. They're not afraid to be seen as reckless. Because they know, regret hurts more than risk. Now imagine if you lived that way. Not recklessly. But with the quiet courage to say, this is what I love. This is what matters to me. And I choose it every single day. That's passion. That's Sagittarius. And when it comes to relationships, you might think Sagittarius only seeks excitement. But here's where their depth surprises people. For Sagittarius, physical affection isn't routine. It's not just something you do. It's something you feel. Something you share with full presence. Their kisses aren't mechanical. They're spontaneous, joyful, full of laughter and connection. Because for them, intimacy isn't about perfection. It's about energy. About being in the moment. Letting go. Being real. Maybe you've experienced this too. A touch that felt rushed versus one that felt intentional. One where time seemed to pause, and you felt completely seen. That's how Sagittarius loves. And it's a lesson for all of us. Stop thinking of intimacy as something you owe someone. Think of it as something you give. Something you share. Not just with your body, but with your presence. Sagittarius reminds us that connection should never feel like a chore. It should feel like an adventure. And that sense of adventure? It's not just about relationships. It's how they live every part of their life. Sagittarius craves open skies. Long roads. The scent of forests. The wind on mountaintops. But beyond physical landscapes, they seek emotional freedom too. They refuse to be trapped by expectations. They crave the unknown. The new. The unexplored. Not because they hate stability, but because their soul thrives on discovery. Have you ever felt that itch? That sense that life should be more than routines and obligations? That deep longing for something different? That's your inner Sagittarius calling. Maybe it's been silent for years. Maybe life's responsibilities buried it. But it's still there. Waiting. Sagittarius teaches us that adventure isn't something we have to find on the other side of the world. Sometimes, it's about breaking mental habits. Trying a new hobby. Saying yes to a conversation with someone unexpected. Changing a pattern you've followed for too long. Because adventure isn't a place. It's a mindset. And what makes Sagittarius truly magnetic is that they invite others into that mindset. Being around them feels like a breath of fresh air. Like possibilities are endless. Like you too could live a little braver. But here's the truth. You don't need to follow someone else to find freedom. Sagittarius shows you the door. But only you can choose to walk through it. And as we move forward in this journey together, I invite you to pause. Take a deep breath. And ask yourself, what does freedom look like to me? What does passion feel like in my life? When was the last time I felt truly alive? Because in the next part of this video, we'll explore the sides of Sagittarius that most people never see. The quiet moments. The rebel's soul. And how their deepest truths can unlock yours. Stay with me. The most revealing insights are yet to come. Now let's slow down and talk about something people often misunderstand. Patience. Especially in relationships. Most of us grow up believing that love means closeness. That love means always being there, every second. But Sagittarius teaches something different. They show us that real connection isn't about holding someone tight. It's about giving them the space to breathe. To grow. To be themselves. Imagine loving someone enough to let them wander. Loving someone enough to let them choose freedom. That's not distance. That's trust. Sagittarius doesn't fear losing people who matter. Because they believe, if it's real, it will always come back. In their world, love isn't a cage. It's a wide open door. And if someone chooses to stay, it means more. Now, apply that idea to your own life. Have you ever held on too tightly to someone out of fear? Have you ever confused control with care? Sagittarius invites you to loosen your grip. Let people be themselves. And in doing that, you'll discover who truly values your presence, not your pressure. But there's a reason Sagittarius can love so freely. They're honest. Brutally honest, at times. But always clear. With them, you never have to wonder what they're thinking. There are no hidden messages. No silent expectations. They say what they feel. Even when it's uncomfortable. And here's the deeper lesson in that. Honesty isn't about being rude. It's about being real. It's about trusting others enough to let them see your truth. How many times have you hidden your feelings just to avoid conflict? How often have you said I'm fine when you weren't? Sagittarius refuses to do that. Because they know every unspoken word becomes a wall between you and the people you love. They teach us that being understood is worth the risk of being vulnerable. It's not always easy. Sometimes honesty creates tension. But that tension is real. And working through it leads to deeper trust. They remind us, masks protect nothing but loneliness. And it's not just in their relationships. Sagittarius carries this honesty into every part of life. They aren't interested in pretending. Not at work. Not with friends. Not with themselves. They speak their truth even when their voice shakes. Because they believe, living a lie hurts more. And that's a question for all of us. What truths are you hiding? What conversations have you avoided because you're afraid of the fallout? Sagittarius would tell you, say it. Say it kindly. Say it clearly. But say it. Because living honestly is living free. Now let's shift from truth to purpose. Sagittarius isn't content with routine. They're always searching. Always chasing something bigger. But here's the part people miss. Their search isn't aimless. It's driven by purpose. By a desire to grow. To understand. To become. They are the seekers of the Zodiac. Not just in the physical world, but in their minds and hearts too. Always questioning. Always wondering, what else is out there? What else am I capable of? What can I learn from this? Think about it. When was the last time you let curiosity lead you? Not for money. Not for approval. Just for the joy of learning. Sagittarius lives that every day. And in doing so, they teach us that life isn't about finding all the answers. It's about falling in love with the questions. When they travel, it's not just to see places. It's to meet ideas. To understand people. To challenge their own beliefs. Their restlessness isn't about boredom. It's about growth. And maybe that's a lesson we all need. Growth doesn't happen by standing still. It happens when we step outside what's comfortable. When we risk failing. When we ask, what more can I become? Sagittarius shows us that being a seeker is not a weakness. It's a way of life. But let's go deeper. Because behind their adventures, behind their bold words, there's something softer. Something quieter. Sagittarius uses humor as a shield. A way to process pain without sinking into it. They're the ones who make you laugh when life feels too heavy. The ones who turn awkward moments into jokes. Not because they don't feel deeply, but because they feel everything. And laughter helps them breathe. You've probably met someone like that. The friend who makes everyone smile, but hides their own struggles behind that smile. That's Sagittarius. And here's what we can learn. Humor isn't always about avoiding feelings. Sometimes, it's how we survive them. Sagittarius shows us that joy isn't a luxury. It's a strategy. A way to cope. A way to connect. A way to remind yourself that even in darkness, there's light. But there's another side to their laughter. When a Sagittarius chooses to be serious with you, when they drop the jokes and share their real thoughts, it means you matter. It means they trust you enough to show the part of themselves that's usually hidden. So, next time someone you love uses humor to deflect, pause. Listen. Look deeper. Maybe, like Sagittarius, they're carrying more than they let on. And maybe you are too. In their laughter, their freedom, their endless searching. Sagittarius carries the wisdom that life is both a journey and a joke. Both serious and playful. Both messy and beautiful. And they invite us to embrace all of it. Because life isn't meant to be endured. It's meant to be experienced. And speaking of experiences, the most profound lessons from Sagittarius are still ahead. The next 3 insights will take us into their quietest moments, their rebellious soul, and their deepest truths about love and life. What you'll discover might surprise you. Or even challenge what you believe. So stay with me. The real revelations are coming next. Now let's talk about something most people never notice. Behind the laughter. Behind the restless energy. Behind that endless search for something new. Sagittarius is, at heart, a rebel. But not in the way you might expect. They don't break rules just to cause chaos. They challenge the rules that no longer make sense. They question traditions, not out of anger, but out of a need to find their own truth. Imagine living in a world where you're constantly told what's right. What's expected. What's acceptable. And imagine having the courage to say, what if I see things differently? That's what Sagittarius does. Every single day. It's not that they hate authority. They just refuse to accept limits without asking why those limits exist. This applies to everything. Work. Love. Life. They don't follow a path simply because everyone else does. They ask, does this path feel true to me? And maybe that's something you've felt too. That quiet voice inside, telling you that there's another way. A different dream. A life that fits your soul better than the one you're living now. But then fear steps in. Fear of judgment. Fear of standing alone. Sagittarius faces that fear head-on. And in doing so, they give others silent permission to do the same. So here's the question, What rule in your life are you following just because someone told you to? What expectation are you carrying that no longer feels right? Maybe it's time to question it. Maybe it's time to rewrite your own definition of success, of happiness, of love. That's the rebellion of Sagittarius. Not destruction, but creation. A life built on personal truth. Now, let's shift to something more physical. Because Sagittarius isn't just a thinker. They're a doer. Their energy is something you can feel when they walk into a room. It's restless. It's alive. And it pushes them to seek challenges. Not to prove themselves to others, but to feel alive inside. Have you ever watched someone dive into something new without hesitation? Someone who signs up for the race, books the flight, or says yes to an opportunity without overthinking. That's Sagittarius. They aren't reckless. They're brave. Their mind craves excitement. Their body craves movement. But more than that, their soul craves the reminder that life is here, now, and it's meant to be lived. And you? Maybe you've felt stuck lately. Maybe life has started to feel like a loop. Wake up. Work. Sleep. Repeat. Sagittarius energy reminds you that breaking the cycle doesn't require a grand escape. It just requires one decision. One risk. One challenge that gets your heart racing again. Try something new. Sign up for that class. Say yes to that road trip. Even if you're afraid. Especially if you're afraid. Because on the other side of fear is the feeling of being alive. Sagittarius doesn't chase adventure to impress people. They chase it to remember who they are. And maybe you need that too. But now, let's get more personal. Because Sagittarius men carry a story few people notice. They often come from humble beginnings. They know what it feels like to start at the bottom. To be overlooked. To be doubted. But here's what sets them apart. They don't let that define them. They work. Quietly. Relentlessly. Building. Growing. Becoming. Not for applause. Not for validation. But because they believe in who they are becoming. Have you ever felt like your dreams were too big for your reality? Like your starting point was too small to reach where you want to go? Sagittarius men would tell you, beginnings don't matter. What matters is movement. What matters is consistency. They're proof that self-made success is possible. That resilience can turn setbacks into stepping stones. And when it comes to love, they look for someone who shares that drive. Someone who understands that building a life takes effort. They're drawn to partners who think big, who dream loud, who can match their hunger for growth. Maybe you've met someone like that. Or maybe you are that someone. Quietly working towards something bigger than anyone can see right now. If so, keep going. Sagittarius energy reminds you, slow progress is still progress. And every small step is shaping a version of you that the world isn't ready for yet. Now, let's return to love. But not the passionate, spontaneous love most people associate with Sagittarius. Let's talk about their quiet side. Because yes, it exists. Sagittarius might seem bold. But when it comes to relationships, they can be surprisingly cautious. They don't rush into commitments. They don't give their heart to just anyone. Not because they're cold, but because they understand that true love is rare and worth protecting. They take their time. They observe. They watch how you treat people, how you speak when no one's listening, how you handle setbacks. They're searching for something deeper than chemistry. They want connection, understanding, growth. And maybe that's a lesson we all need. In a world that moves fast, where dating feels like swiping and conversations feel shallow, Sagittarius reminds us that love should be intentional. Not rushed. Not forced. Built slowly. Built honestly. Built on respect. If you're searching for love right now, remember this: it's okay to take your time. It's okay to say no until someone feels right. Don't mistake loneliness for love. Don't settle for attention when you crave connection. Sagittarius teaches that love isn't about possession. It's about partnership. Two individuals growing side by side, rooted in trust, nourished by freedom. And as we prepare to explore the final part of this journey together, I want you to pause for a moment. Reflect. Feel the weight of everything we've uncovered. Because the last 3 insights about Sagittarius, they're not what you expect. They will reveal their most hidden truths, their quietest wisdom, and perhaps the part of them that feels closest to you. Stay with me. The most powerful revelations are waiting. Let's talk about something most people never notice. Something hidden beneath the fire. The laughter, the endless searching. Sagittarius women carry a kind of wisdom that few understand. Not the wisdom that comes from books or teachers, but the wisdom that comes from feeling life deeply. They learn fast. Not because they're in a rush, but because they're constantly observing, listening, absorbing. Every experience, every conversation, every quiet moment becomes a lesson. But it's not just knowledge they gather. It's understanding. They read people like stories. They sense emotions unspoken. They see what others hide. Maybe you've met someone like this. A woman who looks at you and, without saying much, understands exactly how you feel. A friend who gives advice you didn't even know you needed. A voice that calms you when you're lost. That's the Sagittarian woman. She's not trying to fix anyone. She's trying to understand. And that's what makes people trust her. But here's the lesson. Her insight doesn't come from perfection. It comes from pain. From challenges. From walking her own path of growth. She uses her past not as a reason to close her heart, but as fuel to open it wider. And she teaches us, wisdom isn't about having all the answers. It's about asking better questions. About being curious, not judgmental. About choosing to listen when others rush to speak. So maybe next time you meet someone who seems quiet, someone who watches more than they speak, pause. There's a Sagittarian soul behind those eyes. A heart full of stories. A mind full of empathy. And maybe, if you listen, they'll teach you something that changes how you see the world. And now, for the final truth. Perhaps the most misunderstood side of Sagittarius. People think of them as free, as bold, as easygoing in love. But when it comes to choosing a partner, they're careful. Selective. Not because they're afraid to commit, but because they know their worth. They're not looking for attention. They're looking for connection. A meeting of minds. A partnership that feels like freedom. Not obligation. They watch. They wait. Not for perfection, but for depth. They choose partners who challenge them to grow, who feed their curiosity, who respect their independence. And once they find that, they love deeply, fiercely, honestly. But they won't settle. Not for comfort. Not for convenience. And maybe, either should you. Because the lesson here isn't about Sagittarius. It's about all of us. Stop chasing people who don't see your worth. Stop settling for relationships that drain your energy just to avoid being alone. Be like Sagittarius. Wait for what feels right. Protect your freedom. And when real connection comes, give it your whole heart. Now, take a deep breath. We've reached the end of this journey together. From freedom to passion. From honesty to adventure, Sagittarius has shown us more than zodiac traits. They've shown us a way of living. A way of being. A reminder that life is too short to live half-truths. Too precious to follow someone else's path. Too beautiful to be anything but yourself. If you've seen a part of yourself in this story, know that's not by accident. Maybe there's a Sagittarius energy inside you, waiting to be claimed, waiting to remind you of who you really are. And if today's journey has touched your heart, if it's made you think, or feel, or remember something important, then don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with someone you care about. Someone who needs to hear these words. And if you felt at home here, subscribe to this channel. Because there's more waiting. More stories. More wisdom. More gentle reminders that you are meant to live free. Until next time, take care of your soul. And keep seeking.